Tonight's subject is the sixth beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. It would be ungrateful to pick and choose among the beatitudes, but probably more people see in this beatitude that highest of stars. It seems also the most inaccessible. We hardly know which is the more difficult, the condition imposed upon man or the promise. The pure in heart or seeing God. Tonight I hope to show you, if you'll believe me, that regardless of what you are, regardless of what you have done, regardless of what you now plot and plan to do, you will eventually be pure in heart. That's God's plan. That's His purpose. The initiative for man's salvation lay wholly with God. It is not bestowed on man for anything that he's ever done. It is by grace and grace alone. So you and I need not fear concerning salvation. For to see God is to become God. For we become what we behold. And yet a condition is imposed upon man. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. But because the initiative is all God's, you need not be concerned. He makes it, and He plots and plans the entire thing to purify the heart. And as we are told in the book of wisdom, like gold in the furnace, He has tried us and received us unto Himself as pure gold. Now may I tell you that that imagery is perfect. It's true. That's not just words of the poet. These are the inspired words, inspired by the Spirit of truth. And so when he used gold in this imagery, may I tell you, it is true. Like gold in the furnace, He has tried us and received us unto Himself as pure gold, unalloyed, unmixed with any other substance. For I do know from experience that that which I saw when the curtain of the temple was torn from top to bottom was pure molten gold. Gold in a living, moving, liquid state. And looking at it, I knew it was myself. I instantly fused with it, and then up the rod of Aaron, the great staff of Moses, my own wonderful spine, I ascended in serpentine form right into heaven, to be one with God. For we're all gathered one by one into one single man who is God. But you cannot be gathered and brought into that infinite state until you are pure in heart. And He actually initiates the entire thing and provides the means to purify the heart. Well, in what sense? If I don't do anything, and that's the one stumbling block in the world, surely I can do something to earn it. You can't earn the kingdom. It is grace, grace, and more grace. It's all by grace. Then what must I do? Use the talent that He gave you. The talent of repentance. Use that talent to change the attitude of mind towards life and bring about radical changes corresponding with these inner changes in the outer aspects of your life. And you do that morning, noon, and night. But in a way that you will do not know, He will redeem you because He is going to purify the heart. Now, how does He go about doing it? Through the death of your delusions. Delusions is simply the act of deceiving. Well, self-deception really, for we have a prejudice. We have a false belief, a false theory. Especially that false belief in which we persist stubbornly. It could be a prejudice against a certain race, against a certain nation, against a certain something. Well, in a way you cannot devise it. God will devise the means to actually rub out that delusion. A friend of mine here last year, he's now back in his hometown of Massachusetts. He told me the story right in this city. There were two hates that he had beyond measure. He was born in Boston of Irish parents. His parents came from Ireland. He was born in a strict Catholic family with all the prejudices of a Catholic Irish in the city of Boston. In other words, Jews were the murderers of Christ. He believed that. He was taught that in his home. He was taught that no Jew was good, because only the Christian was. The Jew couldn't be saved. The kid didn't know how to discriminate. He believed it. So he hated Jews. He hated Negroes. And he hated them. He said, I didn't dislike them there, but I hated them. Well, then came the war. And he found himself in the Pacific, a sergeant in the U.S. forces. A private was a Jew. He gave him all the dirty work he could possibly give him. And he had to take it because he was a sergeant and the other was a private. And one day they were pinned down, 150 in his company. The Japanese had them completely covered with machine guns. The slightest move and everything would ricochet off their helmets. As I barely budged, just 1 second, as I could just rise just an inch part of an inch, my helmet became something where there was a spot and it ricocheted all off my helmet. We really couldn't move. And the private said to me, Sarge, do you have any hand grenades? And I said, yes. He said, let me have a few. And he stuck his hand slowly across, and they couldn't see him, and I detached from my belt 3 hand grenades. And that man waited just a few seconds, and suddenly he jumped as though he were on a spring. He jumped up, in spite of the fact it meant almost sudden death, and with these pins pulled properly, he just simply let them go. He blew to pieces the entire nest of Japanese. He was severely wounded, but he recovered. And Neville, at that very moment, I not only lost my hate, it was converted into love. From that moment on, I fell in love with the Jew. Not just that man, but Jews in general. I fell in love with them. So in my little business here in the city, handling bricks and mortar and everything that a mason would use, if a Jew came, he got the job first. I was back here. I still hadn't overcome my hate of the Negro. And an accident took place where I worked, and my uniform, that is my working clothes, caught fire. I am burning. No Caucasian came to help me. And a Negro broke ranks and came forward and threw me on the ground, turned me over several times, and put that fire out with his body. He was severely burned in the act. But I was saved, and no Caucasian helped me. And at that very moment, something similar happened to me. I didn't lose the hate I had for the Negro. It was converted into love. And I loved them. And when I went out to the job, and I got a job needing workmen, the Negro came, he got the job. The Jew got the job. And I can't tell you, Neville, when I tell you, I didn't dislike them. I hated them. In my limited environment in Boston, Massachusetts, raised in the environment of a very restricted mental state. I left that home of mine, my mother's only child, hating, just thinking that if I could only hit someone, I got even with them that way. I couldn't do a thing with my tongue. I couldn't argue with them. It was always a violent reaction until this thing happened to me. So I say, man is purified by the death of his delusions. And God, and only God, can actually devise the means by which that delusion is rubbed out. How could he have devised the means to put a Jew next to him and find himself tied down by the Japanese and their fire? But God had devised the entire thing for this man's heart to be purified. So like gold in the furnace, that certainly is a furnace, I have tried them and received them unto myself as pure gold. And so what is more of a furnace than to be faced by the enemy fire with all this and be tied on the ground by the fire? So we are told in the book of Isaiah, I have tried you in the furnaces of affliction. For my own sake I do it. For how shall my name be dishonored, be profaned? For my glory I will not give to another. Well, God's glory is himself. Grace is God's gift of himself to man, to give himself to you, so there's no doubt in your mind that he actually succeeded in conveying himself and giving himself to you. You would have to be pure in heart, and he purifies you. He does it. He began the good work in you, and he brings it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ being the image of the invisible God. So when in his eye you are pure in heart, you see God, and you become what you behold. That's the story. The minute you behold him, you become him. For he's given you himself. But he can't give it to anything but the unalloyed gold. Pure, pure gold. And I tell you, the imagery is true. Absolutely true. But man has been so conditioned to believe that he has to be good by his own standard. Well, listen to these words in the 16th chapter of the book of Proverbs. All the ways of man are pure in his own eyes, but God weighs the spirit. No two have the same code, and so man thinks in his own code, but he is perfect, he is pure. I was told this week that some preacher here in the town, in this city, last week someone attended his meeting, and he got up before his audience and he said, I thank God every day that I have never smoked in my life. I thank God every day that I've never had a drink in my life. I thank God every day, and he goes through a list of things of which he's most grateful that he hasn't done. Well, I have news for him. He's going to do every one he hasn't done. Everything he hasn't done, of which he's so proud, he is going to do, that he may not condemn it in another. For we are moving towards the last cry on the cross, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Until you've done all, you can't forgive all. But don't go out and seek to do it, you're going to do it. Let me share with you my own prejudice. I thought one would be redeemed by not doing things. I fell upon a peculiar concept of life. I will not mention the name, it may offend a few who may now be interested in it. But I was looking for the truth. Disillusioned, as a young man, disillusioned in marriage. I fell into marriage at the age of 18, a father at 19, separated at 19, and all disillusioned. So I thought, well, marriage is not for me. So I took a vow at this age of 19, of all the things in the world, when nature is running rampant all through your body and you're taking a pledge of celibacy. Having actually experienced fatherhood and you taking the vow of that nature, which I did. Well, the vow of not smoking, that was no vow. I never did smoke. I can't enjoy it. I've tried, but I can't enjoy it. Drinking, well, prohibition was on in this country, therefore that's no vow. Because first of all, I couldn't afford it. And so, not to drink, that was no problem. But not eating meat, that was a problem. I enjoy meat. And so I took a strict vegetarian vow. No meat of any kind whatsoever. Only an egg. Not even in soups would I take a beef stock. And of course, all these things I did. For 7 years, I was doing nothing. My old friend Abdullah, who would live fully in this world, he said to me one day, you know, Neville, you are so good. You are good for nothing, but absolutely nothing. And then he began to teach me this law, this principle, by which you realize your dreams by living in your dreams. And when he proved it to me beyond all doubt, because I had nothing, and he told me to live as though I were in Barbados. And in no time flat, within a month, a request came with the means to make it possible to go to Barbados after being absent for 12 years. And so I knew exactly the power of the old man and how he really understood the mechanism of imagining. So he said to me when I left, he said, Neville, you will die, but not truly die, but you will die before you return to America. He spoke in such a strange way. He had enlarged meanings for the word death, enlarged meanings for every word for that matter. So he said, you're going to die before you come back here, meaning I would die to all of my delusions. Well, I went to Barbados and spent 3 months. Came back on a ship that took 10 days from Barbados to New York City, stopping at all the islands, moving north. And do you know, between Barbados and New York, that 10-day voyage, I did everything I hadn't done in 7 years. Everything. And I can't tell you to this day how it happened. I only know when they put the fish at the table, a fish course, I ate it. And then some man at the table said, what about a nice little wine? with the next course. All right, they brought on the meat. He served the wine. I ate and drank the wine. Ate the meat and drank the wine. After the dinner, he offered a cigarette. Well, I tried it too. But I did everything from Barbados to New York and all of my delusions. Who could have plotted it better than God? And so you died to delusion. So I say to this preacher, whoever he is, that he will be confronted in a way he cannot even resist it. He'll do everything in this world that he now condemns. For what a man is condemning, he moves towards, he fulfills. But God is purifying the heart in this way. And eventually, it's so completely purified, he can reveal the gold. He's bringing it into a molten state. And then the curtain is torn from top to bottom. You behold it, it is gold. It's molten. And you know it's yourself as you look at it. And then one with it, you move up into heaven. So of all the Beatitudes, and they're all great, these are I call them the high watchtower. If man could only live by them. But by living by them, it doesn't mean for one moment you are earning the kingdom. You don't earn the kingdom. And that is my one great surprise every time I leave L.A., or leave any place for that matter, leave New York or leave here. When I return and inquire, well, where is so-and-so? Oh, she's just fallen madly in love with a certain ism. And of course now she's not eating meat and she's not doing so-and-so again. And you thought you got over. You thought you got over that it's not what they do, it's what God is doing. That He began the good work in you and He completes it. You don't begin it and you don't complete it. We didn't say, let us make ourselves in the image of God. The thing is, let's make man in our image. It is God's initiative to make man in His image, not man's initiative to make himself in God's image. And so God started it, God completes it. And only God could devise the means necessary to purify that heart, to bring it into the molten golden state that is unalloyed. And when it's completely unalloyed, you won't delay 1 second. The curtain is torn, you behold yourself, and you are it, and up you go in the serpentine form. Detached from this age as you enter that age, remaining here only long enough to tell what happened, to be a witness to the truth of God's Word. Only this very night, a friend of mine told me that she met a very dear friend, a mutual friend now, and she in the interval has gone into some other Eastern concept. And may I tell you, if you're on the fence and you haven't read the Bible, maybe you can't understand it. Believe me, it is truly the Word of God. And every word is true. Do not add to it, do not take from it. There should be proven a liar. As you're told, don't do it. He'll reprove you and prove you a liar. For every word is true. So I ask you to believe it. This purified heart, you aren't going to do it. Don't make the effort. Live nobly, because I find it easier to be kind, to be generous, than not to be. But I know in my heart, my generous act was my joy. There's no one watching me to chalk up some little mark for me and eventually give me it as a due reward for merit. No. We have that in the Orient, where they go around turning little wheels, and that is their merit wheel. And the more they can turn it, the more merit they're acquiring, in the hope that eventually they'll hit nirvana. But you don't do it. You must live fully and use your talent. And your talents are given to you. Your talent is the art of revision. You know the story of the talent. When he came back, he asked one for an accounting. He gave him 5. And the man used his talent wisely and made 10. He commended him and gave him all 10. One he gave 2. The man used it wisely and made 4. He gave him the 4. And then one only received 1, and he was embarrassed or afraid of the Lord's judgment. So he buried it for safekeeping. What did he tell him? Take it from him and give it to the one who has the most, and cast him out, because he would not exercise his talent. And I know many a person will go to church and will never test God. And you are told in the 13th chapter of 2 Corinthians, come test me and see. Actually test me. The invitation is to test him. Do you not realize that Jesus Christ is in you? Unless, of course, you fail to meet the test. And you're invited to test him and see. Well, if I don't test him because I'm afraid it may not work, then I will lose confidence in God. You test him whether you lose confidence or not. If tonight you want something and it's a noble thing, all right, test him. Put him to the test. Well, how would I put him to the test? I will dare to assume that I am now the man I want to be. And at this moment, everything denies it. Reason denies it. My senses deny it. But I will dare to assume that I am it. And to the best of my ability, I will give it all the tones of reality. I will try to catch the feeling of the wish fulfilled. and then look mentally at my world to get a reflection of the reality of what I'm doing. Well, now I'll test him. Now you project that thing on the screen of space and let the whole vast world see with me the reality of what I am doing. Well, they can't see the invisible reality. They want a concrete, objective form to believe in it. So do I. So I will believe now in the unseen reality, but that's not enough. You objectify it for me and make it concrete that I may share it with the whole vast world. So you test them. Whether it be in romance, whether it be in money, whether it be in position, socially, anything in this world. If there's one door barred to you now, and that's your urge to test him, to prove that you are welcome in such a place, you test him. Dare to assume that you are an invited member. You're invited to join. Not you're breaking through the door, you're invited as someone that is honored by that invitation. Then assume that you are a part of that setup, and let it come. May I tell you it will come? I'm speaking from experience, because door after door in my limited state were all closed to me. They aren't closed anymore. I'm not a member of the clubs, but I have access through members to almost every club that I've gone into this country. In New York City, the exclusive clubs, I have some friend who is a member. He invariably will say, Neville, have lunch with me, have dinner with me, or have cocktails with me in these areas. I don't join. I'm not a joiner of any club in this world. But they aren't barred to me. At one time in my life, I would not even begin to dream I could ever, getting there, say, as a busboy. You don't go in a busboy anymore. You're going as an honored guest of someone who is a member of the place. So I say to everyone, do not accept the present limitation. But don't think if you acquire these great things in the world of Caesar, that in any way it is putting some little mark for you in the eyes of God. This is grace 100%. And so when one tires of having things, and then they try because some philosophy tell them you can acquire it. And that's my problem from coast to coast, to go back and find friends that you thought really understood you. To hear them say, well, in the interval you hadn't been back in the last year or the last 6 months, and I found the most wonderful holy man. Always a holy man or a holy woman, but something that is so holy. And off they go in some blind alley. So here, because this is practically my end, I have one tomorrow night and then Sunday morning, I hope that in the interval before I return, you will not be diverted. For I am telling you a story that few can tell you, and I didn't earn it. I am as normal a man as you are, or any man that you know. With all the weaknesses of the flesh, I still have them. And yet in spite of that, He gave it to me. And someone just told me tonight, those that I know well and love dearly, in the interval, they were led to believe, well, maybe Neville is suffering from some grand hallucination, some grand something. And you have these things uninvited, and they come one after the other, the entire series completely uninvited, and not in a way you could ever have suspected. You record it, you tell it, and yet you find this peculiar question mark in their mind's eye. Why? Because they've dined with you. They've dined with you and saw in you a perfectly normal, natural man. In other words, you didn't bring the meat out of the atmosphere. Someone brought it from the kitchen. And you cooked it, and you did the cutting, and you washed the dishes afterwards, and you did all the normal things that a man would do. But that can't be one who really has been smiled upon by God, one who God has saved from the world of recurrence. How could it? He's such a natural person. He made the drinks and brought all the drinks in. And maybe he brought in too many. And so there is a perfectly normal, weak man. So in the absence of the constant reminder from the platform, they meet someone who doesn't drink, who doesn't entertain them socially. And so in that case, they don't know his weaknesses, and he can hide behind the little veil that he differs from the rest of the world. He doesn't differ from anyone in this world. We're all in a world of very, very weak natures. And that's the great fantastic thing. This transformation of this fragile human being into the image of God. No one but God could have done it. Man couldn't do it by taking thought. And yet he's gradually transformed from one degree of glory into another, as he actually lifts the veil, and we're told one veil is lifted after the other, and from one degree of glory into the other, until finally we're one with God, and then lifted off the scale of recurrence. So if someone this night does the most violent thing, may I tell you, don't condemn it. Just transform it in your own mind's eye. This past summer in Barbados, a man said to me, years ago, this retired man said, I have a certain property. Would you investigate them for me and tell me if they're secure, or should I change my portfolio? Because I'm retired now, and this is my choice for my portfolio. So this man took him at his word, investigated the stocks and bonds, and came back and said, it's perfect. They've always paid a good dividend, and they have good management. I wouldn't change one stock you have there. They're all good and solid. Then he said to my father, about 6 months later, he said, Mr. Joe, I took that man's stocks and bonds, investigated them thoroughly, and they're all perfect. They're solid. He has not a thing to worry about, but he's always so worried. Why is he so worried? My father said, he has much to worry about. He said, what is it, Mr. Joe? He said, he's worried how he came by them. All right, so the man played a part that you and I wouldn't want to play. But that's all right. My father didn't condemn him. He said he's worried because he has another code and he fell short of his code. In little Barbados in the old days, it was really a hang-up for pirates, really. Even in my lifetime, I would call them pirates because this man ran. He called it a hotel. I wouldn't. I called it a house. Well, he had a bar and this place, and when the men came in, he plied them with rum and rolled them. Captains, officers, men, everyone. So that's how he came by his money. And it so preyed upon him that one day he sat on the beach, looked off at the ocean as the water came lapping up to his waist, then took a razor and severed his face. And that was his exit from this world. Still don't condemn him. That's the part he played. But now God will restore him instantly to life. Insert him into a new time sequence, best suited for purifying the heart. And so he played that part in this little time sequence. He'll play another part without loss of identity. He'll be the same I, the same consciousness, in a new series, and then a new purification. And the day will come, that one who severed his own face because he couldn't live with his memory of what he did to others to gain Caesar's dollar, will tomorrow be just as pure as the gold that God is seeking. And when it's that pure, he is one with God. For blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So, play your part fully. You need not do that. I don't think anyone here would do it, or you wouldn't be here really. But you come here to hear of God's law, and God's law is infallible. As we're told, blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord, for in all that he does, he prospers. Not in a few things, in all that he does, he prospers. Well, if that is true, as told me in the very first Psalm, I should make every effort to find out that law. Blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord, for in all that he does, he prospers. Well, now, I have found that law. It's a simple, simple law. And the law is simply, whatever I am assuming that I am, that I'm going to be. It's as simple as that. Ask in my name is asking with my name. If my name is I am, and I dare to assume that I am secure, security being relative, I know what I mean by secure. Relative to anything formally that I must have possessed, I would know what I would like to have in order to live securely. Well, I'm asking in the name of God when I say I am secure. I'll fall asleep in that state. As my old friend Ab used to say, I willed it so to be. I am still willing it so to be. I will continue to will it so to be until that which I have willed is perfectly realized. But what he meant by will, not human effort, he meant dare to assume I am that. As I assume I am that, well then it goes into the next state, and finally the whole thing unfolds before my world. Today I went over to Oakland, and this lady told me that her niece attends a class at UC in Berkeley, and she went to this professor who was teaching the actual subject, what he called it. The first day he had 40 odd in the class. He went to the blackboard and he wrote up, I am, and began to explain what he meant by it. As the class came to an end, he wrote, I am that I am. There was a snicker among the boys and girls, 45 of them. The next time he held the class, less than 20 attended. They aren't interested. Maybe he doesn't know it. Maybe he does know it. I think as the professor over there, maybe he does know what he's talking about. But if the children would just come and listen to the man, they'd be far better qualified when they're left at university than taking books that are today true based upon a certain concept, and tomorrow must be revised because it's not true. But that will everlastingly be true. I am that I am. So you define something in your world, and you say it's that. Well, I am that. You say, what a marvelous thing it would be if I only, and you name it. As you name it, it's that. Now you assume that I am that. I am. You affirm it. And you dare to walk in that assumption as though it were true. And then all of a sudden it happens. It becomes true. Is that better to know that little law and go and live by it than something that quickly passes away and disproves itself? So blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord. For in all that he does, he prospers. Now here is one this past summer in New York City. This lady said that in a dream she met numberless people, and she seemed to know them all, some better than others. Memory failed with some faces, but she knew them. And she longed to be with them. The stream was very narrow. Beautiful crystal water. Not water as we know it, but it was water. And she felt it was holy water. And strangely enough, the water came right to the banks. It didn't overflow. And these beautiful trees, like ancient trees, on the side. They were on that side, but she couldn't seem to reach them. And she felt if I could only touch them, that would satisfy me. And she realized she was separated by a physical state. She was physical, and they were not. And because of this physical state in which she found herself, she couldn't touch them. Then appeared before her suddenly a little boat. She got into the boat and said to herself, well, now I will row across and I can touch them. But as she got into the boat fitted her and no one else. It actually fitted her like a bathing suit, as it were. It was a boat. And there were no oars to row across. And the stream took up, and strangely enough, the stream went uphill. But it didn't seem unnatural that water should flow uphill. It rippled, beautiful crystal clear water rippling uphill. And the banks never overflowed. And then, on that side of the very narrow stream, they pointed to the end of the stream. And one voice said to her, not until you traverse the length can you cross the width. You traverse the length, and you'll cross the width. And that's our life. You aren't going to shorten it. You're going to traverse the length and encounter all the scenes that are there to be seen. And you will rearrange some, if you believe what I tell you. Others, you will like them as they are and not rearrange them. You'll come upon scene after scene. Some are not pleasant. You'll revise them. That's repentance. Some are pleasant. You'll delight in them. That's all right. But on the very end of the stream, then you will traverse it. And you are part of the boat. Well, that's what Blake said. Man is either the ark of God or a phantom of the water and the sea. He's either one or the other. He's either the ark of God or simply a phantom. He's the ark of God. He gets into it. The whole thing is contained within him. And the stream takes him. He can't row it. He can't do a thing about it. He moves from moment to moment to moment to encounter events. And then he either changes the event within his mind's eye, or he doesn't. Even the unpleasant things men won't change. They think it's a fact. They aren't facts. They're there to exercise your talent. So you encounter a disagreeable person in the office. All right, he's disagreeable. Change him. He is a fact. Represent him to yourself as a very pleasant person that you like to do business with. And all of a sudden he changes his attitude towards you. That was a challenge to you to exercise your talent. So along that stream, you aren't going to encounter him anymore. Not the disagreeable one. You'll encounter a transformed person because you use your talent to transform him. So that everyone, from morning to night, as the poet said, does the road wind uphill all the way? Yes, to the very end. Does the journey take the whole long day? Yes, from morn till night, my friend. So until you get to the very end, you can't get across the little width. And the width is so narrow. And the journey seems so long, but not until you traverse the length will you cross the width. And here I do hope that in the short interval I've been here, that I've convinced you that this story is true. That Christianity is truly God's word, God's plan, and his purpose for every child born of woman. that you will not be diverted and think, well, now, if I were more holy, maybe it would come sooner. You can't rush it. It's not for you to know the times and the seasons fixed by the Father's own authority. Just wait for the promise of the Father, and it will come, and the promise is a gift of himself to you, where you know beyond all doubt you are God the Father. You're not just a little puppet, you're God the Father, because he gives himself to you. And because he is a Father, he reveals his gift through his Son. There's no other way in eternity that he can reveal he gave himself to man, save man becomes the Father of God's Son. You can analyze it. If I say you and I are one, and I tell you I have a son, and you have no knowledge of being the father of my son, you are not conscious of the fact that we are one. But if I have a son, and you are conscious of the fact that you are his father, are we not one? Well, here is a son. You go back and read it. Read that second Psalm of David. Thou art my son. Today I have begotten thee. That's established forever. Well, when you read it, you will say this is 1964, and that was written 1000 BC. So it's not related to me. Well, maybe God is the father of David, you may say as you read the words, if they are inspired words. And suddenly it happens to you, well, then you know God gave himself to you. For you always believed that was his anointed son, his Messiah. And then one day, that same son calls you Father. If he calls you Father, he tells you you're God the Father. It seems too good to be true. That's why, undoubtedly, my close friends that I entertain socially cannot believe, because of the weaknesses they see in the man who is their host, could have that grace smile upon him. How could he be the father of God's only begotten Son when the man has all the weaknesses of the flesh? And so, that's the grand test for everyone, really. To comfort you, go and read the 7th chapter of John. They said, if you really do these works, if you really are the one that you say you are, then show yourself. For even his brothers did not believe in him. And then one say, but we know this man. We know where he comes from. We know his parents. We know his brothers. We know his sisters. And when Christ appears, no one will know where he comes from. How then can he say that he and the Father, who is God, are one? And he said to them, your time is always here. My time has not yet come. Or who understood him? Your time is always here. It's a wheel. It's always here. My time, speaking of the age to be, that age of which he had tasted, of the power of that age, has not yet come. I have tasted of it, and the events have started unfolding within me, so my time has not yet. He repeats it now, and when he repeats it the second time, he adds the word fully. The first time he said, my time has not yet come. When he repeats it, my time has not yet fully come. It has come, but not yet fully come. And so my divine inheritance cannot become actual, or is at least not fully realized in me, so long as I'm still wearing a body of flesh and blood. So it has not fully come, although it has come. It has come, only marking a few more moments for my departure. So he said at the very end, the time for my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And henceforth is laid up for me a crown of righteousness. So he knows this is the last time. That was Paul's letters. And he's writing to his friend he called my son, Timothy. And the time for my departure has come. But still he is talking to Timothy. He's talking to the others, but he knows the time for his departure has come. He also knows the fight that was his. I have fought the good fight. It has been a battle, these afflictions. But he said, I have kept the faith. And the race, as far as he is concerned, the race is over. I have finished the race. And so he didn't go back on the vision. I ask you not to go back on the vision that I've shared with you, because I'm telling you every word is true. I have not embellished it. I haven't taken from it to make it more palatable. I haven't added to it to exaggerate. I told it just as it happened to me. And that is true Christianity. In spite of what the priesthoods of the world will tell you, that he came 2,000 years ago in a unique, strange way to a woman who knew not a man. You are that woman. if you know Scripture, you are the bride of the Lord. Therefore you are the woman. For your Maker is your husband. The Lord of hosts is his name. If my Maker is my husband, I must be his bride. And therefore I, though male, I am his emanation. And yet his bride to the sleep of death is over. So I am his bride, though male. You, though male, you are his bride. Female, you are his bride, though you have a husband at home. And you may be the mother of many children in this world of Caesar. But you are the bride of the Lord. And he is your Maker. And the Maker must leave father and cleave to his bride until they become one flesh. That's the command. And so he's cleaving to you until he purifies your heart. When you're completely pure, he fuses with you and then appears before that union. And here is confirmation of your productivity. You have a son. And the son is the Son of God, and you are God. Because your son is calling you Father, and you're exactly who he is. It doesn't make sense, but it's true. Every word is true. So I ask everyone to believe it. I see a gentleman tonight here, he's been here every night. He's still asking the question of the devils, the Lucifers, all the delusions of the world. Put them all together, they are personified as the devil. Because what devils a man more than his prejudices, his delusions? What was more of the devil for that man when he carried that hate in his heart for a race of people and a faith? Because the Jew, although they call themselves a race, you can be a Jew and be born in China, born in India, born in darkest Africa, born in any part of the world, and not look like an Oriental Jew. Born in Germany, blonde, blue-eyed Jew. So it's a faith, the faith of Abraham, in the fulfillment of Christianity. So I say to him, the devil of Scripture is simply the complete personification of all the delusions that one day God in his infinite mercy will burn away from us, testing us in these furnaces of experience. And when we are tested and they're all burned from us, then we are reduced to pure, pure gold. And the imagery is perfect, for that's exactly what you see. Now you have no more delusions. No one can persuade you that because of the pigment of your skin, that you are better than, or because that you speak a certain tongue, that you're better than those who speak what to you would be a foreign tongue. Like I said to my friend who just graduated, he has his PhD now from UCLA, in ethnic music. Well, he began to describe to a friend of mine what he meant. And the friend was all carried away. He is a professor of ethnic music. And then my friend who has the PhD had to explain to him, do you know that our music here is ethnic? If you were in the Orient and you spoke of the American music, that's ethnic. You speak now of the Thai music, well, to us, that's ethnic music. And so he was completely stunned with this use of the word, which is only, well, where are you living? But that's ethnic. You have your own ethnic music. We have ours. And here in this fabulous thing of ours, we have one book that never grows old. Yes, a word will change its meaning, and tomorrow's scholar will try to find the meaning that the author originally had and bring it back with a new printing, a new edition. But he tries to keep the meaning, the original meaning, and the book is everlastingly new. There's no need for another Bible. We have the Bible. So there's no need for another teacher. You have the Bible. No need for another God. You have the Bible. No need to go elsewhere. You have the Bible. And the Bible is all about you. In the role of the book, it is all about you. Every word is written about you individually. And the promise is all to you. And so when your heart is purified, not by your efforts, but by God in you, which is the one who actually became you, he purifies you, as it's pure, like pure gold, that very moment you will ascend. And after you've ascended, waiting for that final departure from here, you still can't look into the mirror and call yourself any different. You still love, you still enjoy company, you still enjoy the things of Caesar. All the things of Caesar while you're wearing the garment which attaches you to the world of Caesar. For this garment is an animal garment. And as an animal garment, it is fed by the food of the animal and on the food of the animal. Until finally, in the very last moment, you take off the animal and leave it forever. For you rise then in spirit, for you've been born of the Spirit. So to come back, the sixth beatitude I'm not going to single it out and call it better than, because you can't discriminate between them. It would be stupid for me to tell you the 6 is the best. No, they aren't any best. But I must confess, it seems the most inaccessible if I look at it on a certain level and think I then have to do it. For a condition is imposed upon man, seemingly. Blessed are the pure in heart, for he shall see God. And so which is the more difficult? The condition that I must meet to be pure in heart, or seeing God? And then I heard of God's infinite mercy that I couldn't do it, because he's going to do it. That I didn't say I'm going to make myself in his image. He said he's going to make me in his image. So he began the good work in me, and he will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. And when it's completed in his mind's eye, the veil is torn, the pure gold is there, I fuse with it and ascend as the Son of Man, which is the only title that Jesus ever gave to himself. Others called him Lord, others called him Savior, others called him other names, but he called himself Son of Man. And so the Son of Man will ascend as pure gold in the form of the serpent right up into heaven, one with God. Now, are there any questions, please? Yes, sir.
What did Abdullah tell you to do between the time that you imagine, you're imagining, and between that time and the time of demonstration?
Well, I'll tell you in details exactly how we got together. It was 1933. If you remember, there was a frightful depression on in our country. Millions were unemployed. In New York City, you would go through the tunnel into Gimbels from, say, the square where Gimbels begins. It goes all the way through to the Holland Tunnel. They were sleeping with the permission of the mayor, 3 and 4 deep, as far as the eye could go. There's no place to go. In the park, in the summer months, they were allowed to sleep in the park, sleep all over the place. And the long lines for coffee and bread that were there to give them. There were millions unemployed. We then had a population of not more than, say, 130 million, as against today's 192 million. I was a dancer, and if you couldn't eat, you couldn't pay to watch a dancer. So there were no shows playing on Broadway. I think we had 5 Broadway shows, and they were running on paper. Just people passing out paper to go and see them, really, instead of the usual 50 and 60 shows that you used to get. Well, what I'm getting at, I didn't have a job, I had no money, and I was living in a basement on 75th Street, and he lived on 72nd Street, in a very lovely home that was owned by Morgenthau, whose son was then the treasury of our country, a cabinet member, but his father owned this house, but he didn't live there, and he rented the first floor to my friend Abdullah. I said to Abdullah, in the month of October, late October, Ab, you know, I've been gone from Barbados for almost 12 years. Came here in 22. And it's almost 12 years. I've never had a desire to go back. But now I have a hungry desire, a haunting desire to go to Barbados. Not a thing stops me but the lack of money. I have no money. He said to me, you are in Barbados. I said, I'm in Barbados? He said, yes, you are now in Barbados. And so you see Barbados, and you see America from Barbados, and you can smell the tropical land of Barbados, see only the little homes of Barbados, and that's all you do. You just simply sleep this night in Barbados. Well, I thought him insane, really. I mean, at the moment, it seemed so stupid, because 72nd Street, we still had 50 and 60-story buildings. And little Barbados was a little 3-story building, almost the tallest that you'd find, and narrow little streets and no sidewalks. And I'm walking on a sidewalk wider than the wide street of Barbados on 72nd Street. Well, nevertheless, that night I slept in Barbados. I assumed that I'm in Barbados in my mother's home. And then I saw America relative to Barbados, and it wasn't under me that night. It was north of me, about 2,000 miles. Well, the next day, I didn't tell him anything. About a week later, when nothing happened, I thought I would approach him. This time we've moved into November. I said, you know, Ab, there is not a thing has happened. He wouldn't discuss it with me. He turned his back on me and went into his little library and slammed the door. About 3 times I tried to open up the discussion with my friend Ab between that moment when I first talked to him and the end. He would never discuss it. on the basis, how can he discuss with me how I am going to Barbados when I am already in Barbados? That's stupid to discuss how I'm going to go when I am in Barbados. And if I am faithful to my assumption, I can't discuss the how. I am already there. Well, this went on. On the morning of the 4th day of December, there's no job, no place to go, and the last boat that will get me there, my Christmas, is going to sail on the 6th. Under my door is a little letter from my brother Victor. And he said, as a family, we were never around the table at Christmas together. That Cecil, that is my oldest brother, he left home before the last was born. Because we have a large family, there's an interval of 8 years between my sister, Daphne, who was the 8th child, and then my brother, Joe. Well, in that interval, my brother Cecil went off to Demerara. So, never as a family were we ever together at Christmas. So in the letter, he justifies why he's asked me to come. He said, I know you don't have a job, and there's no excuse for not coming. And so I'm enclosing a draft for $50. You may need a shirt, a pair of shoes, socks, or something. And I've notified the Furnace Whitty line that you will come for a ticket. So the ticket is waiting for you at the Furnace line. Well, I was so excited, I rushed on down to the Furnace line, and I gave them my letter. They said, yes, we have a message here from your family in Barbados. We'll give you a ticket, but we haven't any first-class tickets left. You can go third class and use the facilities of the first, but you have to sleep third class until you hit the island of St. Thomas. When you hit St. Thomas, someone disembarks, then you may take a first-class bunk. I said, I'll take it. I rushed right up to Abdullah. And I said, Ab, I have my ticket for Barbados, but I have to go third class. I am all elated and happy about it. He said, who told you that you're going to Barbados? And who told you that you went to Barbados third class? You went to Barbados and you went first class. Would say no more. He isn't even happy that I'm going to Barbados now. So I went down on the morning of the 6th day of December with my third class ticket. Went up to the desk as they're checking in the passengers, and I put my ticket forward. He said, I've got good news for you, Mr. Goddard. Someone is cancelled, and you're going first class. And I went first class, all the way down to Barbados. 10 days down, 10 days back, with 3 heavenly months in Barbados. So all that I did, I tried to the best of my ability with his, I would call almost insolence. He was rude. But he taught me by his rudeness that I cannot discuss how if I am doing what I'm supposed to do. He tells me right away, you are in Barbados. Like someone comes to you now, and you would apply this principle towards their request, and they say, oh, I would love to be happily married. And you say to her or him, you are now happily married. They look at you as though you're insane. But that's exactly what you're supposed to do. You are now happily married. Well, if I am now happily married and I'm a lady, I would instantly begin to feel that ring there in my imagination. I let others see that I have my ring, for that would imply I'm happily married. It's a wedding ring. And so if I don't wear it from then on, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So in my imagination, I have to go to bed wearing my ring. And actually do all that I would do in that state. Oh, he said, you are in Barbados. And I'm in New York City physically, but he put me in Barbados in my imagination. So that I slept in Barbados to the best of my ability. But you know, days go into weeks, and the weeks went into a month, and I'm trying my best to open up the discussion with him to get a little hope. No hope. He wouldn't give me any encouragement if I did what he told me to do. But we all are human enough to want another little discussion, another little push. And so he taught me the lesson that there is no such thing as a little pregnancy. No such thing.